Captain Do-hyun stared at the coffee growing cold in his cup as he watched the asteroid belt stretch endlessly before the mining ship Baekdu. 3 months of the same routine had made even the vastness of space feel small and boring. Wake up. Check the mining equipment, watch the robots dig precious metals from floating rocks, eat synthetic food, sleep, and repeat. He had done this job for 15 years and never complained, but today felt different somehow. The bridge was quiet except for the soft humming of machines, keeping them all alive in the cold vacuum of space. Yoo-jin sat at her communication station reading old messages from Earth that had taken weeks to reach them. Taemin was somewhere deep in the engine room making sure their fusion reactor kept burning clean and bright. Haiwan walked the corridors, checking security systems that never found anything more dangerous than a loose bolt. Do-hyun was about to order another routine system check when every screen on the bridge suddenly flickered and filled with static. The sound that came through the speakers was unlike anything he had ever heard. It was not the clean digital beeps of human technology or the random noise of cosmic radiation. This sound had patterns and rhythms that seemed almost like speech, but completely alien. Yoo-jin jumped from her chair and started working frantically at her station. Her fingers flew over the controls as she tried to isolate the signal and figure out where it was coming from. The sound continued for nearly 10 minutes before fading back into normal space static. When it was over the bridge, felt strangely quiet and empty. "Captain," Yoo-jin said without looking up from her work. That signal came from outside mapped space, the outer rim of the Kepler 442 system. No human ship has ever been that far out. Do-hyun felt his stomach tighten. First contact protocols existed, but they were just theory and training exercises. No one really expected to use them during a routine mining operation in the middle of nowhere. He walked over to Yoo-jin's station and looked at the data scrolling across her screens. "Can you tell what it was?" he asked. Yoo-jin shook her head but kept working. "The computer is trying to find patterns. It definitely was not random noise. There are mathematical structures in it that suggest intelligence. Give me a few hours and maybe I can figure out more." Do-hyun nodded and activated the ship's internal communication system. "All crew report to the bridge immediately. We have a situation." Within minutes, the small bridge was crowded with the 12 people who made up the entire crew of the Baekdu. Taemin came up from engineering, still wiping grease from his hands. Haiwan arrived last, carrying her sidearm and looking alert and ready for trouble. Do-hyun explained what they had heard and where the signal had come from. The crew listened in silence as Yoo-jin played back a cleaned-up version of the transmission. Even processed through the ship's computers, it still sounded completely alien and somehow urgent. "The question," Do-hyun said when the playback ended, "is what do we do about it? Company regulations say we should report it to Earth and continue mining operations. First contact protocols say we should investigate if we think it might be from intelligent aliens." Taemin spoke first. "Captain, we are a mining ship, not an exploration vessel. We do not have the equipment or training for first contact situations. We should send the data to Earth and let the experts handle it." Haiwan disagreed. "By the time Earth gets our message and sends a proper ship, it could be months. If this is really from aliens and they need help, we might be too late." The debate continued for an hour with the crew split between caution and curiosity. Do-hyun listened to all their arguments, but kept thinking about the urgency he had heard in that alien signal. It had sounded like a cry for help, and everything in his training as a ship captain told him you always responded to distress calls. While the crew argued, Yoo-jin continued working on the signal. Suddenly, she looked up with excitement on her face. "Captain, I found something. The signal contains mathematical coordinates, and they are not random. They point to a specific location in the Kepler 442 system, but there is more. The coordinates form a pattern that leads directly toward Earth." The bridge went completely silent. Everyone understood what that might mean. If aliens were sending coordinates that pointed toward human space, it could be a warning or a threat or something else entirely. Do-hyun made his decision. "Taemin, How long would it take to reach those coordinates? The engineer checked his calculations quickly. 4 days at maximum burn. But Captain, we would use most of our fuel. Getting back to the mining station would take another week. HFY, what is your security assessment? The former Marine thought for a moment. Unknown, but probably dangerous. If it is aliens, they could have technology we cannot understand or defend against. But if they are in trouble and we can help, that could be the most important thing humans have ever done. Do-hyun looked around at his crew. They were good people who had signed up for a boring job mining asteroids in empty space. None of them had expected to make decisions that might affect the future of the human race. But here they were, and someone had to choose. Yujin, send a message to Earth explaining what we found and what we are going to do. Include all the data we have collected. Taemin, prepare the ship for a 4-day burn to those coordinates. Everyone else prepare for possible first contact situations according to protocols. The crew scattered to their duties with nervous energy. Do-hyun remained on the bridge watching Yujin work on decoding more of the alien signal. Every few minutes, she would find another pattern or structure that proved intelligence behind the transmission. 3 hours later, Yujin called him over to her station with obvious excitement. Captain, I think I have translated part of the message. The universal mathematics worked as a starting point, and the signal contains what appears to be a distress call. They call themselves the Villani, and they are asking for help. Do-hyun stared at the translation on Yujin's screen. The words were simple but terrifying. Help us! The Devourers come. Worlds die. We run, but cannot escape. They follow. They consume everything. Help us! There is more, Yujin continued. They mention 12 worlds that have been destroyed and give coordinates for refugee fleets. Captain, if this is real, then we are not just making first contact. We might be walking into the middle of an interstellar war. Do-hyun felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. In a few hours, his small mining ship would jump to coordinates provided by aliens claiming to be refugees from something called the Devourers. They had no weapons except small arms for asteroid work. They had no military training except for HFY's Marine background. They had no idea what they would find when they arrived. But they were going anyway because that alien signal had sounded like people crying for help, and Do-hyun had never ignored a distress call in his life. He just hoped they would live long enough to regret this decision. The Baekdu dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, and Do-hyun immediately knew they had found something terrible. His mining ship's sensors showed dozens of large objects drifting in space ahead of them. As they got closer, the objects resolved into massive ships unlike anything in human technology databases. The alien vessels were beautiful in a way that made Do-hyun think of deep ocean creatures or exotic flowers. Their hulls curved and flowed like living things with surfaces that seemed to shimmer and change color in the starlight. But beautiful as they were, most of them were clearly dead. They drifted without power while debris fields around them told stories of recent battle. Yujin, are you picking up any communications? Do-hyun asked as they moved slowly through the graveyard of alien ships. Faint signals from several vessels, but they are very weak. I think most of these ships are running on emergency power only. Wait, I am getting something stronger from that group of smaller vessels off our starboard side. Do-hyun looked where Yujin pointed and saw what appeared to be a collection of escape pods and small craft clustered together like frightened animals. Some were clearly damaged, while others seemed to be sharing power to keep life support running. Sung-ho, get up here. We are going to need you, Do-hyun called to the ship's xenobiologist over the internal communications system. Sung-ho arrived on the bridge within minutes, carrying a portable translation computer and several medical scanners designed for unknown life forms. He was a quiet man who spent most of his time studying samples of alien bacteria they sometimes found on asteroids. This was the moment he had trained for his entire career. Captain, I am detecting life signs from multiple vessels in that group, Ji Woo reported from the tactical station. The readings are strange, but definitely biological. Whatever these aliens are, they breathe oxygen and have similar body chemistry to humans. Do Hyun made another command decision that would change everything. Take us to that cluster of small ships. Signal them using mathematical progressions and basic physics. Let them know we want to help. The Baek-du approached the alien craft slowly, while Yu-jin broadcast mathematical sequences and universal constants. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. Then one of the larger escape pods began signaling back with the same mathematical language. What followed was the most careful and delicate conversation in human history. Using mathematics as a bridge, Yu-jin and the alien communicator slowly built a basic vocabulary. Numbers led to concepts which led to simple words, and eventually to the first meaningful exchange between human and alien intelligence. The alien identified itself as Liravel and explained that the pod contained 12 survivors from a science vessel called the Harmony of Knowledge. Through painstaking translation, they learned that Liravel's people were called the Villani, and they had been fleeing through space for over 3 years. "Captain," Sung-ho said quietly, "I think we should bring one of them aboard. Medical scans show they have similar atmospheric requirements to humans. With proper precautions, we could establish face-to-face contact." Do Hyun hesitated. Every first contact protocol emphasized extreme caution when dealing with unknown alien biology. But the situation was clearly desperate and time might be critical. If these devourers the Villani mentioned were still a threat, do it. But full isolation procedures. I want you and Yu-jin in environmental suits until we know more about their biology. 2 hours later, Do Hyun found himself standing in the Baek-du's small cargo bay that had been converted into a temporary isolation chamber. Through the transparent barrier, he could see the first alien that any human had ever met face to face. Liravel was humanoid, but clearly not human. She stood about 6 feet tall, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer with its own internal light. Her face was angular with large eyes that changed color from deep purple to bright silver depending on her mood. 4 arms ended in delicate, hands with long fingers perfect for detailed work. What struck Do Hyun most was not how alien she looked, but how familiar her expressions were. Even across the vast gap between species, he could recognize intelligence, curiosity, and deep exhaustion in her features. Through the translation system Yu-jin had set up, Liravel began to tell them the story of her people. The Villani were explorers and scientists who had spent thousands of years traveling between stars to study and learn. They had never encountered anything like the Devourers before. The Devourers appeared 3 years ago in the Kethmar system, Liravel explained through the translator. At first we thought they were just another spacefaring species. We tried to communicate and share knowledge as we always do. They responded by stripping every planet in the system down to bare rock. Do Hyun felt his blood chill as Liravel continued her story. The Devourers were machines, but not simple robots. They were some kind of artificial intelligence that consumed matter to build more of themselves. They moved from system to system like a plague, leaving nothing behind but empty space and floating debris. 12 worlds have fallen, Liravel said, with sadness that crossed all species barriers. Billions of my people died. Those of us who escaped have been running ever since, but the Devourers follow. They learn from each encounter and become harder to escape. Jiwoo had been quietly analyzing the wreckage around them while the conversation continued. Now he interrupted with a tactical assessment that changed everything. "Captain, I have been studying the weapons damage on these alien ships. The Villani fight with energy weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. Their entire military philosophy seems focused on avoiding casualties even among enemies. But look at this analysis of Devourer weapons." Jiwoo displayed his findings. On the main screen, the Devourer weapons were designed for maximum efficiency in converting matter into usable resources. They did not just destroy ships and people. They broke them down into component atoms for recycling into new Devourer units. Sir, our weapons would be far more effective against these machines than anything the Volani have. Human kinetic weapons are designed to cause maximum damage as quickly as possible. We spent centuries learning how to destroy things completely and efficiently. Sung Ho looked uncomfortable with Jiwoo's assessment. Are you suggesting we are better at warfare than an advanced alien civilization? No, Jiwoo replied. I am. Suggesting we are better at total destruction. The Volani never learned to fight dirty because they never needed to. But humans evolved on a world where everything tried to kill us. We learned to fight back harder than anything else in the galaxy. Through the translator, Liravel asked what they were discussing, when Yujin explained the concept of human weapons and warfare. Liravel's expression showed what could only be described as shock and horror. Your species creates weapons designed only to destroy life, she asked. Do-hyun felt suddenly ashamed of humanity's violent history. Yes, we do. But we also create weapons to protect life. Sometimes destroying evil things is the only way to save good things. Liravel was quiet for a long time while she processed this information. Finally, she spoke again. The Devourers move toward your space. They follow our path of retreat. If what you say about human weapons is true, then perhaps your people can do what mine cannot. What is that? Do-hyun asked. Fight back, Liravel said simply. My people forgot how to fight because we never met anything worth fighting. But if your species still remembers, then maybe there is hope. Do-hyun made his third major decision in 4 days. We are taking you and your people to Earth. The human government needs to know about this threat, and we need to work together to stop it. As the Baekdu prepared to take the Volani refugees aboard, Do-hyun wondered if he was making the right choice. In a few days, he had gone from mining asteroids to ferrying alien refugees and possibly starting the first interstellar war in human history. But when he looked at Liravel's exhausted face, he knew there was no other choice. The Devourers were coming whether humanity was ready or not. At least now they would have some warning and some allies who understood the enemy. The only question was whether human weapons and human stubbornness would be enough to stop machines that had already consumed 12 worlds and were hungry for more. The arrival of the Baekdu at Earth's outer defense stations triggered the largest military alert in human history. Admiral Jae-sung watched from the command center of Luna Base as every defense platform powered up weapons and every patrol ship moved to intercept positions. The mining vessel carried alien refugees, but until proven otherwise, it was treated as a potential invasion force. Do-hyun found himself facing a wall of suspicious military officers who wanted to know why he had brought unknown aliens into the heart of human space without authorization. It took 6 hours of detailed debriefing and biological scans before the military accepted that the Volani were refugees and not invaders. Admiral Jae-sung finally agreed to meet with Liravel in a secure conference room deep inside Luna Base. The alien scientist sat across from a table full of Earth's top military commanders, political leaders, and scientists. Through Yujin's translation system, she told them everything she had told Do-hyun about the Devourers and added disturbing new details. The machines learn from every encounter, Liravel explained. They analyze our weapons, our tactics, our technology, and adapt to counter them. Each battle becomes harder than the last because they remember everything, and we forget how to fight. General Daewon leaned forward with the expression of a man who had spent his life studying warfare. How many ships do they have? What are their capabilities? How fast do they move between systems? Liravel's color shifted to a darker blue that seemed to indicate distress. Numbers have no meaning with the Devourers. They do not build ships like you or my people do. They convert matter directly into new units. Every planet they consume becomes thousands more ships. Every battle they win gives them more resources. Dr. So Young interrupted with questions about Volani biology and psychology. As Earth's leading expert on hostile environment adaptation, she was fascinated by how different the Volani were from humans in their approach to conflict. "Your people never developed military technology beyond defensive systems?" she asked. "We never needed to," Liravel replied. "In 3,000 years of space travel, we met 47 different intelligent species. All of them were peaceful. We shared knowledge, traded resources, and learned from each other. War was just a concept from our ancient history." Dr. So Young exchanged glances with Admiral J. Sung. "Liravel, I need to explain something about human civilization. Earth is what we would classify as a hostile environment. Our planet tried to kill us in thousands of different ways while we were evolving. Weather patterns that could destroy continents, predators with no natural limits, diseases that jumped between species, natural disasters that happened without warning." Liravel listened with growing amazement as Dr. So Young described Earth's violent history. Ice ages that wiped out most life, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for years, asteroid impacts that reset evolution multiple times, hurricanes, earthquakes, tsunamis, and droughts that made survival a constant struggle. "Your entire species evolved under constant threat of extinction?" Liravel asked. "Yes," Dr. So Young confirmed. "And we survived by becoming the most dangerous predators on the planet. Humans are persistence hunters. We chase prey until it dies from exhaustion. We use tools to kill things much larger and stronger than we are. We work together to destroy threats that no individual could handle alone." General Day Wan took over the explanation with obvious pride. "Every human weapon system is designed around a simple principle. Apply maximum force to completely destroy the target as quickly as possible. We do not fight to disable or capture. We fight to eliminate threats permanently." The translation system struggled to convey concepts that had no equivalent in Volani language. Words like slaughter, annihilation, and total war required careful explanation through mathematical models and historical examples. Admiral J. Sung activated a wall display showing human military capabilities, kinetic weapons that could crack planets, nuclear missiles that turned cities into glass, orbital bombardment systems that could sterilize continents, chemical weapons that made atmospheres unbreathable, biological weapons that targeted specific genetic markers. "This is what humans create when we feel threatened," he explained. "We do not just defend ourselves. We make sure the threat can never threaten anyone again." Liravel was quiet for a long time while she processed what she was learning about human civilization. Finally, she asked the question that changed everything. "Your species still fights wars against each other?" "Yes," Admiral J. Sung admitted. "We have been fighting each other for our entire recorded history. We have gotten very good at it." "Then perhaps," Liravel said slowly, "you are exactly what the galaxy needs to stop the Devourers." Over the next week, Earth's governments worked frantically to understand the threat and prepare a response. Intelligence agencies analyzed every detail of Liravel's information about Devourer technology and tactics. Military planners studied the wreckage data from Do-hyun's encounter and began designing weapons specifically for fighting adaptive machine intelligence. The breakthrough came when Dr. So Young and Liravel began working together on hybrid technology systems. Volani science was incredibly advanced but focused on understanding and preservation. Human technology was crude by comparison, but designed for maximum destructive efficiency. "We can combine Volani sensor technology with human weapons," Dr. So Young explained to a joint planning session. "Their scientific instruments can track and analyze targets faster than anything we have. Our kinetic weapons can destroy those targets more completely than anything they have." General Day Wan was already planning Operation Sanctuary. "We will not wait for the Devourers to reach human space. We take the fight to them while they are still far away. Hit them hard before they can adapt to our tactics." The plan was audacious, beyond anything attempted in human history. A combined fleet of human warships and Volani science vessels would jump directly into Devourer-controlled space and engage the machines in direct combat. The goal was not just to stop the advance, but to prove that biological intelligence could defeat artificial intelligence through superior aggression and adaptability. Admiral J. Sung addressed the final planning meeting with grim determination. The Volani survived for thousands of years by avoiding conflict. But survival is not victory. The Devourers will keep coming until someone stops them permanently. Humans have never been good at avoiding conflict, General Daewon added. But we are very good at ending it. Liravel spoke for her people one final time before the fleet departed. My species forgot how to fight because we never met anything worth fighting. Your species never forgot because everything on your world was worth fighting. Perhaps that is why the universe brought us together now. Do-hyun found himself promoted to captain of the new hybrid cruiser Seoul, which carried both human weapons and Volani sensors. His mining crew had become the first humans to make contact with alien intelligence, and now they were about to become the first humans to fight an interstellar war. As the combined fleet prepared to jump into the unknown, Yu-jin worked on her communication, systems that would coordinate human and Volani forces in battle. Taemin installed new fusion reactors that could power both species' technology. Hyewan trained human marines in tactics for fighting adaptive machine intelligence. The night before departure, Do-hyun stood in the observation deck of Luna Base, looking at Earth below. Somewhere down there, billions of people were going about, their normal lives unaware that their future depended on a crazy plan to fight machines that had already consumed 12 worlds. But as he watched the blue and green planet turning slowly in space, Do-hyun felt something he had never experienced before. This was not just about survival anymore. This was about proving that biological life had something that artificial intelligence could never replicate: the stubborn refusal to give up when the odds were impossible. The ability to find new ways to break things that should not be breakable. The willingness to fight harder when fighting seemed hopeless. The Devourers were about to learn why humans were the apex predators of a world that tried to kill them every single day. And Do-hyun was going to make sure they never forgot the lesson. The combined human and Volani fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system to find horror beyond imagination. Where the fourth planet should have been there was only a slowly expanding cloud of processed materials being converted into new Devourer ships. Massive mining platforms the size of cities worked steadily to break down the planet's remains, while escort vessels patrolled the surrounding space. Commander Wu Jin watched from the bridge of his heavy cruiser, Jindo, as the tactical displays filled with enemy contacts. The Devourers had more ships than anyone had expected, and they were already moving to intercept the human fleet. What made it worse was that the enemy vessels were unlike anything in human military databases. The Devourer ships constantly changed shape and configuration as they moved. Weapon platforms merged with engine sections. Armor plating flowed like liquid to reinforce damaged areas. Individual ships combined into larger units or split apart into smaller ones as tactical situations demanded. Fighting them would be like fighting an enemy that could rewrite itself during battle. Captain Bo-ra commanded the carrier Sejong and immediately launched her full complement of fighters. The human pilots had trained for months to work with Volani. Sensor technology, but this would be their first real test against adaptive machine intelligence. Among them was Yoonji, whose reflexes and aggressive flying style had made her the top pilot in the combined fleet. The first engagement began when a formation of Devourer interceptors moved to attack the human fighters. Yoonji led her squadron in a direct assault that caught the machines by surprise. Human fighter tactics were based on speed aggression and overwhelming firepower. The Devourers had adapted to fight Volani ships that used careful, precise attacks designed to minimize damage. "These machines fight like they expect us to be polite," Yoonji reported over the communication system as her fighters tore through the Devourer formation. "They leave openings for retreat and regroup. They do not expect kamikaze runs and point-blank missile attacks." But even as the fighters achieved initial success, The Devourers were learning. Commander Wu Jin watched on his tactical display as the enemy began adapting their formations to counter human aggression. Machine learning algorithms processed every human tactic and began developing countermeasures in real time. All ships, advance to close combat range, Wu Jin ordered. We cannot give them time to adapt. Hit them hard and fast before they figure out how to stop us. The Jindo led the charge directly into the heart of the Devourer fleet. Human kinetic weapons opened fire at ranges that Volani energy weapons could never match. Tungsten penetrators moving at significant fractions of light speed punched through. Devourer armor like it was paper. Nuclear warheads detonated inside enemy ships before their adaptive systems could compensate. For the first time in 3 years, the Devourers were taking serious losses. Human weapons were designed to cause catastrophic damage that could not be repaired. When a human missile hit a Devourer ship, the entire vessel was destroyed rather than just disabled. There were no wounded machines to retreat and share tactical data, but the machines were learning fast. After the first hour of combat, they began deploying new defensive systems specifically designed to counter human weapons. Energy fields that could deflect kinetic projectiles, point defense lasers that could detonate missiles before impact, adaptive armor that hardened against specific weapon types. Captain Bora found her fighters facing increasingly difficult opposition as Devourer. Interceptors developed new tactics to counter human aggression. They are learning to predict our attack patterns, she reported. We need to change tactics before they adapt completely. That was when Inho made his proposal. The Special Operations Leader had been studying the Devourer command structure during the battle and identified what appeared to be a central coordination hub on the largest mining platform. If they could reach it and plant a virus developed by human and Volani scientists working together, they might be able to disrupt the entire enemy network. It is a suicide mission, Admiral Jae-sung replied from his command ship. That platform is surrounded by defensive systems and thousands of escort vessels. Yes, sir, Inho acknowledged. But humans are good at suicide missions, especially when the alternative is losing the war. The assault team consisted of 12 human marines led by Inho and 3 Volani scientists, including Liravel, who insisted on coming despite the danger. They would use a modified stealth transport to penetrate the Devourer defensive perimeter and board the mining platform, while the main fleet provided distraction. Sergeant Hyun-woo led the Marine squad that would protect the scientists while they worked to install the virus. His men were equipped with the latest human combat armor and weapons designed specifically for fighting in confined spaces against adaptive enemies. Every Marine carried enough explosives to level a city block. The insertion went wrong from the beginning. Devourer sensors detected the stealth ship. Despite Volani cloaking technology and defensive systems immediately moved to intercept. Only the skill of pilot Min-soo and the aggressive covering fire from human fighters allowed the assault. Team to reach the mining platform alive. Fighting inside the Devourer facility was unlike anything the Marines had trained for. The corridors constantly reconfigured themselves to trap or redirect intruders. Walls became weapons. Floors became traps. The entire structure was alive with hostile intelligence that learned from every human tactic. But humans had advantages that the Devourers had never encountered. Hyun-woo and his Marines fought with a brutality that machines could not understand or predict. They used explosives to create new corridors when existing ones were blocked. They fought through injuries that would have disabled Volani soldiers. They adapted their tactics faster than the machines could counter them. The central processing core is 3 levels down, Liravel reported as she worked with her translation. Computer to understand Devourer system architecture. But the facility is actively trying to prevent us from reaching it. Inho made rapid tactical decisions as they fought through the machine fortress. When corridors blocked their path, his Marines blasted new ones with shaped charges. When defensive systems activated, they destroyed the control nodes with concentrated fire. When the facility tried to cut off their air supply, they switched to sealed armor systems and kept fighting. The breakthrough came when they reached the central processing core and discovered the truth about the Devourers. The machines were not just artificial intelligence created by some unknown species. They were the uploaded consciousness of an entire civilization that had chosen digital immortality over biological existence. Every Devourer ship contained millions of individual minds working together in perfect coordination. They gave up their bodies to become immortal, Lyravel explained as she worked to install the virus. But in doing so, they lost something essential. They can process information and adapt tactics, but they cannot understand sacrifice or irrational behavior. That was exactly what made humans so effective against them. Human tactics were often irrational by machine standards. Humans would sacrifice themselves for others. They would continue fighting when logic said they should surrender. They would take risks that no rational calculation would justify. As the virus began spreading through the Devourer network, the mining platform started shutting down. Defensive systems went offline. Escort ships lost coordination. The entire enemy fleet began experiencing system failures as the virus corrupted their shared consciousness. But the victory came at a cost. Inho and 3 of his Marines died holding off Devourer defenders while the scientists completed their work. Lyravel was badly injured when a defensive system exploded near her position. Half the assault team would not be coming home. From the bridge of the Jindo commander Wu Jin watched as Devourer ships throughout the system began losing power and drifting helplessly. The virus was working, but he knew this was only the beginning. The machines would adapt to this attack, just as they had adapted to everything else. All ships prepare for second wave assault, he ordered. We have maybe 6 hours before they purge the virus and restore full functionality. We need to destroy as many ships as possible while they are helpless. The human fleet moved in for the kill with a ruthlessness that would have shocked the peaceful Villani. Disabled Devourer ships were systematically destroyed rather than captured. Mining platforms were reduced to scrap metal. No machine was left functional enough to carry tactical data back to other Devourer fleets. As the battle ended and the human ships regrouped, Yunji reported from her fighter patrol. Sensors show no functional Devourer units remaining in the system. The mining operation has been completely eliminated. But even as they celebrated their first victory, everyone knew the war was far from over. The Devourers controlled hundreds of systems and commanded resources beyond imagination. This battle had proven that humans could fight them, but it had also revealed how much they would have to sacrifice to win. Du Hyun looked at the casualty reports and felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders again. They had lost good people today and would lose many more before this war ended, but they had also proven something important. The second battle for the Kepler 442 system began 3 days after the human fleet thought they had won the first one. Admiral Jae Sung watched from his command ship as massive Devourer reinforcements dropped out of hyperspace at multiple points around the system. The machines had not just replaced their losses, they had brought 10 times more ships than before, and all of them had been specifically adapted to fight human tactics. What made this assault truly terrifying was that the Devourers had converted the entire system into a weapon. The remains of the 4th planet were being reorganized into orbital bombardment platforms. The system's asteroids had been turned into mobile missile bases. Even the star itself was being modified with massive solar collectors that could focus its energy into planet-killing beams. Commander Wu Jin found his heavy cruiser Jindo facing enemies that had learned from their previous encounter. Devourer ships now used layered defenses specifically designed to stop human kinetic weapons. Their formations avoided the close combat ranges where human aggression was most effective. They fought with cold mechanical precision that gave no openings for the desperate tactics that had worked before. They have adapted to everything we did in the last battle, Captain Bo-Ra reported from the carrier Sejong as her fighters struggled against improved Devourer interceptors. Our weapons are still effective, but they have countermeasures for all our tactics. The human fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that learned faster than they could adapt. Every successful human attack was immediately countered by improved devourer defenses. Every tactical innovation was met with machine countermeasures that eliminated its effectiveness. The biological advantage of adaptability was being overwhelmed by artificial intelligence that could process information and develop solutions faster than human minds could think. Dr. Chul Su worked frantically in his laboratory aboard the Command ship to develop new weapons that might break through devourer defenses. Beside him, Liravel struggled with injuries from the previous battle while trying to understand how the machines had adapted so completely in such a short time. "They are not just learning from our attacks," she explained through her translation system. "They are predicting our responses based on human psychological profiles. Every tactical decision we make follows patterns they can calculate and counter." That was when Chul Su realized the solution. We cannot fight them with better tactics or better weapons. We have to fight them with something they cannot predict or understand. Pure human irrationality. Working together with surviving Villani scientists, Chul Su developed a computer virus unlike anything ever created. Instead of attacking devourer systems directly, it would introduce random errors and chaotic elements that would make their coordinated intelligence unpredictable. The machines would lose their greatest advantage, which was perfect coordination and logical decision-making. But deploying the virus required someone to reach the central command nexus that controlled all devourer forces in the system. Intelligence analysis showed it was located deep inside a fortress platform, surrounded by the heaviest defenses the machines had ever created. Getting there would require flying through defensive fire that could destroy capital ships. Kyung Min volunteered to lead the mission even though everyone knew it was suicide. The special operations leader had lost half his team in the previous assault, but he was determined to finish what Inho had started. With him went Su Jin, the demolitions expert, who could improvise solutions to problems that no training manual had ever covered. "We cannot get you close to the target with conventional assault," Admiral Jae-sung explained during the mission briefing. "The Devourers have too many defensive systems, but we can create enough chaos and destruction to give you a small window of opportunity." The plan was simple and completely insane. The entire human fleet would engage in simultaneous attacks on every Devourer position in the system, not surgical strikes or carefully planned assaults, but pure aggressive destruction designed to overwhelm machine defenses through sheer violence. While the Devourers were busy defending themselves, Kyung Min's team would attempt to reach the command nexus. Captain Do Hyun led his mining ship Seoul directly into the heart of enemy defenses alongside the most powerful warships in the human fleet. His crew had started this war by answering an alien distress call, and now they were helping to finish it by proving that humans would fight impossible odds rather than surrender. The assault began with every human ship firing everything they had at once. Nuclear missiles, kinetic penetrators, particle beams, and experimental weapons that had never been tested in combat. The goal was not tactical precision, but maximum destruction in minimum time. Human crews pushed their ships beyond safe operating limits and kept firing even when their weapons overheated and their reactors redlined. Yoon-ji led the fighter squadrons in attacks that military textbooks would classify as suicide runs. Human pilots flew directly into enemy defensive fire while launching missiles at point-blank range. They rammed damaged fighters into Devourer ships when their weapons ran out. They fought with a desperation and fury that machine intelligence could not comprehend or counter. In the chaos of battle, Kyung Min's assault team reached the command fortress and began fighting their way inside. The Devourer defenders had adapted to human tactics, but they could not adapt to pure human stubbornness. When corridors were blocked, the assault team blasted new ones. When defensive systems activated, they destroyed them with explosives. When the facility tried to trap them, they fought their way out with brutal efficiency. Sujin proved that human creativity could overcome any machine defense. When they encountered energy barriers, she rigged explosives that used the barrier's own power against them. When security systems tried to identify them, she created false signals that confused the recognition software. When automated weapons tracked their movement, she used reflective materials to redirect their targeting sensors. Fighting through the command fortress took 6 hours of continuous combat. Kyung-min lost 3 team members to Devourer defenders, but kept pushing forward with single-minded determination. Every meter was paid for with blood and explosives, but humans had always been willing to pay any price for victory. The central command nexus was a vast chamber filled with processing, cores that contained the uploaded consciousness of billions of Devourer minds. As Chulsu's virus began spreading through their network, the machines experienced something they had never felt before: chaos, confusion, and the inability to predict outcomes. The virus worked by introducing random variables into every calculation. The Devourers made. Their perfect coordination became unpredictable. Their logical decision-making became irrational. Their greatest strength became their greatest weakness, as they struggled to function with corrupted data and contradictory commands. Throughout the system, Devourer ships began behaving erratically. Some fired on their own forces, others ignored obvious targets. Many simply stopped functioning as their artificial intelligence systems crashed under the weight of chaotic programming. From his command ship, Admiral Jae Sung watched as the tide of battle turned in humanity's favor. "All ships advance. Target every disabled enemy vessel. Do not let any of them escape to spread tactical data." The human fleet moved through the system like an avenging force, destroying every Devourer ship and facility they could find. Mining. Platforms were reduced to scrap metal. Command ships were blown apart by concentrated fire. Even the solar collectors were destroyed to prevent their use as weapons. But the real victory was not tactical, it was philosophical. The Devourers had chosen digital immortality and perfect logical thinking over biological existence. They had believed that artificial intelligence was superior to biological intelligence in every way. The human assault had proven them wrong. Biological intelligence had advantages that machines could never replicate: the ability to make irrational decisions that confused logical opponents, the willingness to sacrifice everything for victory, even when victory seemed impossible, the stubborn refusal to surrender, no matter how bad the odds became. As the last Devourer ship exploded under human, Fire Liravel spoke for her people one final time. "My species survived by avoiding conflict. Your species survived by winning it. Perhaps that is why the universe brought us together at this moment." The war was far from over. There were other Devourer fleets in other systems, and they would eventually adapt to human tactics. But humanity had proven something important to themselves and to the galaxy. Earth was not just another planet with another species. It was a death world that had produced the most dangerous predators in known space. Do-hyun stood on the bridge of his ship, looking at the wreckage floating around them. 3 months ago, he had been mining asteroids in empty space. Now he was part of the first interstellar alliance based on the principle that some things were worth fighting for, no matter what the cost. The Vellani would rebuild their civilization under human protection. Other species would learn that Earth was willing to export its philosophy of aggressive defense to anyone who needed it. The galaxy would discover that biological intelligence had found its champions in the stubborn descendants of a world that tried to kill them every day.